In this video, we're going to be panning our tracks around the stereo field with these pan knobs. This is going to help make our mix clearer and more transparent, and it's going to allow us to hear each instrument very clearly in the mix. So let's start with the drums, and I'm just going to solo these kick tracks. Remember, this kick out track, we're going to have to process it to make it into something usable, but let's just listen to them one at a time first. All right, you can hear the thwack of that kick beater hitting the head. And then here, it's sort of a soft thump. So we're going to keep these two together for several reasons. Number one, they have different frequency content, right? The kick out is very low in terms of its pitch. It's a low pitch. And the kick in has a much higher pitch. So they're not going to conflict with each other if they're in the same space. Number two, they're actually the same performance. And so there's not going to be like rhythmic differences as long as we make sure they're phase aligned, which we'll do in a later video. I'm also going to keep the kick in the center here. That's pretty traditional, and I would say that probably 90% of the time the kick drum and the bass here, which together with the kick drum forms the foundation of the mix, those tracks almost always go in the center. They don't have to. There's no like mixing police that are going to come arrest you if you do something else with them. But for this mix, I'm just going to keep things traditional, and we're going to keep the bass and the kicks right in the middle. And any conflict that might arise from putting both the bass and the kicks in the middle, we'll address with EQ. All right, other things to put in the middle, the lead vocals.
Very superstitious writings on the wall.
It would be very unusual to pan the lead vocal off to one side. Times you would do that might be if you are recreating the mix for like a concert. Maybe you have the video of the concert, and so you're doing like some post-production and the singer is off to one side, then maybe that would be a time to pan the vocal track around. But most of the time, lead vocals right in the middle. Now this saxophone, notice that it comes in after the lead vocal. The vocalist stops and doesn't sing the rest of the track. Then we have a saxophone solo, then a guitar solo, and then the sax takes it out from there. So the saxophone can actually be panned to the middle as well, because it's not going to conflict with the vocal because they play at different times. Also notice that the saxophone and the bass are playing the same notes and rhythms. That's cool because the bass is down a couple of octaves from that sax, and so having them in the same position actually reinforces that harmonic foundation. So those are the things we're going to leave in the middle. What are we going to pan around? Well, we have the snare drum. So the snare top and bottom, just like the kick in and out, they're going to work together. So you wouldn't want to pan the top and bottom apart because that would not sound great, right? You want to keep them together because these are two different parts of the same drum performance. Now I'm going to go ahead and pan these slightly to the left, maybe around 10 o'clock there. And I'm going to pan this from drummer's perspective, as if we are the drummer and the snare drum is on our left. Same thing with the hi-hat. And you can experiment with the placement of that. The hi-hat and the snare will not conflict generally because the hi-hat is so much of a higher pitch level, like it's higher in frequency. But if you wanted to be like extra accurate about it, I suppose the hi-hat is a little farther out to the left than the snare. It would be just as fine to put the snare and the hi-hat in the middle also. I know I said that we want to pan things out, but the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat do not get in each other's way because of the difference in pitch level. Same thing with the bass, the sax, and the vocals. They're either coming in at different times or they are not conflicting because of frequency. Now the toms here, after we isolate the toms in a later video, this will become more apparent, but we are going to pan those around drummer's perspective. And so tom 1 is going to be to the left. Tom 2 will be to the right. And then tom 3 will be further to the right. So this will give you that boom, boom, boom from left to right for the fills. The overheads, we're going to leave these out wide for right now. Sometimes I will make my drum image narrower, but this is picking up the whole kit. And so for right now, we're going to leave it wide open. And then the room mic, we're going to leave pan to the center until we really figure out what we want to do. There's a bunch of things we could do. We could duplicate the track and pan them out. We could do a bunch of things. But just moving these few tracks out is going to clear up a lot of space in our drums. The keyboard we could leave panned wide, or we could make the keyboard narrower. Let's see what that sounds like. So here it is, kind of a narrower image. And then wide. We can compromise, go part way. Let's hear it with the overheads. You know, I could go a lot of different ways on this. Make it narrower, make it wider, right in the middle, whatever. You're going to decide what sounds good to you. Ultimately, if you're working for someone else, you know, the client will have an opinion, and you kind of want to do what the client says, especially if they are experienced and accomplished, especially if they're the ones paying you. So the guitars, let's talk about these guitars. We have two different guitar sections, right? We have this sort of accompaniment rhythm guitar section, and then we have a solo section, and we will treat these differently. Let's get both of these, and I'm going to move that one off to the side. And these are the same performance, but there are two different microphones. So when we process them with EQ, we can make a difference. We don't have to pan them symmetrically either. We don't even have to use both tracks. We could have just that. That would be fine. But I'm going to leave it like this for right now.
Dishes. Wash your face and hands. Rid me of the problem.
Now, is this the final pan position for all of these elements? Maybe, maybe not. We won't know until we start adding the processing. But this is very basic. We have the kick, bass, and lead instruments and vocals right in the middle. We have the other drum set elements panned around the stereo field. We have wide overheads. We have keyboards that could, a keyboard track that could be wider, it could be narrower, but it's, it's taking up that stereo field. And we have two guitar tracks that we have panned to different locations. There's nothing groundbreaking about this. This is a pretty standard way of doing things.